Hi, I'm Kristy Knichel, co-host of the LLC podcast. It's an honor to introduce listeners to inspiring women who are making a real difference in logistics and the supply chain. With the LLC podcast, you'll hear inspirational stories, both personal and professional, challenges our guests have overcame, how their backgrounds help to shape who they are today, and how they empower others, give back to their communities, and often the world. I have a very special guest with me today that I have been waiting to talk to on this podcast, and it is Jennifer Karpus-Romain. Jennifer serves as the executive director of the Transportation Marketing and Sales Association, or known as the TMSA. She is also adjunct professor at the Cuyahoga Community College teaching social media. Previously, she was the director of marketing for Fay, a software integration firm, and has also held roles in the publishing and marketing industries and managed her own content and publishing firm. She has her Bachelor of Science in Journalism from Ohio University and received her MBA from Capella University. Let's begin and just dive right in, Jennifer. Thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you for having me. And it always, when Pete, you just read my whole bio, it seems very professional of me.
Well, it's awesome. You got to start somewhere, right? And start adding to it. Yeah, I was reading through it myself thinking, wow, like you've done a lot of different things. So, yeah, I mean, talking about your extensive background, working in marketing, publishing, journalism, and recently you were just appointed the executive director of the TMSA. So that is awesome. So congratulations.
Thank you.
You're
Yeah.
welcome.
I always like to be challenged, and I like to kind of work on different skill sets. I don't like to be bored in the workplace, I guess. And so I have, looking at that, it's always a mouthful, even though I feel like it's not. But I really I've really transferred different industries, different roles, and it kind of goes all around the written word is like the core of who I am. Like I've worked for PR Newswire, where I was helping to get press releases across the wire. I've worked in community journalism. I've worked in the business sector in journalism. And that's really where I started then getting more into that industry piece of what then became like the next big piece of my professional life, starting with writing about manufacturing and tires specifically. And then that kind of got me into transportation. And I really have found my career in these industrial spaces, and I love talking about that because I think from the creative side, when we're talking about journalism or marketing, it's always, the fun brands, like let's work for yogurt shops or yoga studios or retail. You're not talking about, oh, hey, there's an entire industry, multiple of them, that are in dire need of solid marketers to help them tell their stories. They are a little bit more timid to tell their stories, or they don't understand how they are different or unique from their competitors. And that is what I love. And that's kind of how I became into marketing in those spaces, because everyone does have a unique identifier. Everyone has a story to tell, but they don't always know how to tell it. And I love doing that. And so then I kind of just take all of those parts. And I joined TMSA as an affiliate member. So somebody selling into the industry. I worked at a tech firm, and transportation was one of our biggest industries. And really being able to understand as best anyone can how complicated the supply chain is in transportation and logistics and all the different little pieces and parts that go into that. I joined TMSA and I loved it. And I joined the education committee and really fell in love with that. In 2021, I took over the marketing committee and joined the board. And when the old management company said, you know what, we're edging closer to retirement, we're looking to kind of offload TMSA and do something else. And I was part of that hunt for who was going to be the new leader and where did TMSA need to go? And are we an annual conference organization, or are we really a true membership organization? And we all felt, the board felt, we really are a membership organization, and we the annual conference is amazing, and I was so happy to have you there with us this year. But we also do other things. We have other events going on. We have a member portal full of resources for our members. We have networking events and all of these things. And that just really became a passion of mine, is being able to present all of those things, and then taking it full circle to what I said at the beginning of finding that place in this more industrial space in transportation, having these roles for these creative people, but in something that you wouldn't necessarily think about or isn't talked about as much in high school, in college as you're growing up. And so that really has become a passion of mine. So all of the things kind of just merged together, and I decided to take on the leadership role at TMSA. And it has been quite a year of adapting and learning on my feet, but it's been amazing to be able to usher TMSA into its next phase of life. We are almost 100-year-old organization, which is bananas.
That's
and
crazy.
Yeah, it started as a marketing for the railroads organization, which I wish that there was a file transfer from
Right.
98 years ago. I just want to know what they talked about.
That's crazy. I mean, because me being in the industry as long as I have, like, I would say marketing really wasn't as important, I guess, putting it out. Like, well, obviously social media maybe didn't exist initially, but the last couple of years has been extremely important, I feel. And especially in our space and transportation, you didn't see a whole lot of companies doing, like, say, the outside marketing, or even maybe some of the more marketing that they're doing inside. They're looking at it a little bit differently. So maybe you can talk a little bit about, like, how you have seen that evolved, maybe even more specifically over the last couple of years.
Absolutely. I definitely think that in transportation, marketing can be, for many companies, an afterthought, or like, hey, marketing, yeah, we'll have one person that's going to do that. And that is at the core of a lot of our member companies. There is one person. There is one director of marketing, and they're directing all of the marketing. And whether that is actually doing all the work themselves or having an awesome team of like vendors helping them out, whatever that looks like. And that is often dependent on their budget and what they're able to do. I do think there's this shift after COVID and through COVID, or whatever part of COVID we are in now. But there is a bigger visibility on marketing and what it can do and how that can support other parts of the business. And I think it's twofold. One, there are many companies who during COVID very quickly learned that they do not know how to communicate to their employees. So all of a sudden, people aren't in the offices, or not as much. You have to explain what your regulations are, what their rules are, who's in the office, who's not in the office. If you go to the office, what do you have to do to get there? Do you have to take your temperature? Do you have to take tests? All of this stuff. So if you don't have a communications expert on your team, that becomes very difficult very quickly. And so all of a sudden, people are like, oh, hey, that marketing person, they probably know how to do that. And so those resources are getting tapped for internal communication as well. And then there's another shift that started happening where you also learned the deficit of your technology. Is your technology working? Is it not? Is it connected? So that's a lot. At the company I worked at before, we were a software integration company, and that was our bread and butter, helping companies let their technologies talk. If you have a TMS system, it might have a CRM component in it, but is it actually doing what it should be doing, or what a more traditional CRM can do? So more people are then getting that more traditional version, but how do they connect? And then with that, is it also attached to your marketing automation or your Salesforce platform? Are you getting the full scope of everything? Can everyone have the visibility into the pieces that they need? And that becomes more important or more prevalent as we do have this distributed workforce who isn't just able to like knock on their neighbor's door and ask questions. With that, then that marketing automation software is now having visibility into different parts of the industry, not the industry, but different parts of the company that didn't always exist before. So people are like, oh, hey, wow, marketing is doing a lot. They send emails, they do social media. Oh, they're creating the sales enablement collateral. Oh, they're working with HR to help with recruiting stuff. Like, what is all these things that they're doing? And it's just a visibility that really didn't exist even just a couple years ago.
Yeah, I mean, speaking about some of those changes, first of all, I did not really hear of the TMSA until I met you at the TIA, and you invited
Yes.
me to come speak. So thank you. So it was a great conference, and at that conference, hearing some of the other people talk about how they're handling internal communication stuff that maybe HR would technically maybe handle or maybe be a part of, where it's kind of moving over to the marketing side a little bit as well, because it was about keeping people, right? And how do we get people and how are we keeping them happy? And it wasn't even, again, just the HR person, it was marketing. So I found that to be very interesting to hear. And then the other part of it too, like you said, it's like an afterthought, right? And me being a CEO of a company, you know, how giving advice on how do you get your CEO to spend more money on marketing. For me, you know, like I said, that was very easy because I work with the director of marketing within my company, and I see the value. I see how important it is to the company. So that's definitely something I want to get out there and talk about. So, you know, I know you mentioned some of the things that TMSA is working on. And one thing I do want to say is, you know, with the story you just told us, our good friend Blythe, who's part of our LLC podcast here, I talked to her recently and she said you were the savior of the TMSA.
Oh,
I
that
thought was
is so
awesome.
sweet.
Yes, no, and I thought that was awesome because, like you said, kind of like a dying organization, so to speak, or not knowing what direction to go in, and then you kind of taking that and trying to make it something that is important and that people are aware of. And I do think it's important. So, can you talk a little bit more about, you know, why it's important to the organization and what, you know, go in a little bit more depth of what the TMSA can provide their members?
Sure. So we do have a lot going on at TMSA and for our members. And that when I took on the organization, that's the number one thing that I will tell any person, whether you are interested in TMSA, whether you are a TMSA member, whether you're a past member, an affiliate member, a traditional member, whatever. I want you to tell me what you want TMSA to be and what resources you would want, because that to me is step one for us, especially in this rebuilding time period, is to make sure that we are hitting the marks of what our members need from us because of all of those changes that we just discussed, because it has changed so rapidly. With that said, we do have an annual conference every year. It's in June. So I was so happy. I remember we were really interested in doing this like leadership panel. And I was like, I know. And I remember we were on an education committee meeting and I like turned my video camera off and I ran to my suitcase because I still had your business card sitting in my purse inside my suitcase. And I was like, I know who we want on it. Because it is like getting all these great voices. We have these great panels and stuff at the annual conference. And next year it'll be June 11th through 13th at the Hyatt Regency in Savannah. So that is our big marquee event. We do that all the time. This year, we've also decided to make an event that's geared towards the executives. So people like yourself, that C-suite, people who are making budget decisions and really looking into the future of their business and this industry. So we're doing an executive summit on October 20th through 21st at the Intercontinental in Buckhead in Atlanta. And I know Charlie Saffro is a part of this too. She's one of our speakers. I'm so excited. And we just have a really great lineup of people that are coming. And I'm excited for that event because I think that when I did a focus group of the C-suite and I asked them, what do you guys care about? What do you need? There are things like, oh, we want this for our staff. Our team needs to learn these. But for you guys, it was like, hey, where's a place where we can sit and have informal conversations with people just like me? Because where do you get to do that? And to me, that is really the heart of TMSA, is being able to engage and network and have real, honest, and sometimes even vulnerable conversations with your peers or with somebody who's not a direct peer. Like as a previous director of marketing, I always really loved talking to salespeople because I wanted to put out the best sales enablement collateral I could. I wanted my team to actually value what I was doing and be a support to them. But it's not necessarily their job to tell me how to do that. It's for me to figure that out. So, and that's what we're doing with that executive summit for that C-suite, that higher level of professionals. We also are bringing back networking events for local communities. We have one in St. Paul going on in just a couple weeks. And then we'll be announcing shortly one for the Jacksonville area that's going to be a tour of Jacksport and a great networking. So we're really excited. Yeah. And then we also have regular webinars that anyone can attend. But when you become a member, you get access into our member portal, which I'm really excited. I know when we finally found the day for us to have this conversation, it was really exciting because it's right in the middle of all these really exciting things for TMSA. But we just recently launched that member portal and a brand new website. And I'm really proud of the website because it does not have stock images. It has real people. I'm almost positive you're on it. Yeah. And I told people like, hey, it's like playing I Spy with your friends and your coworkers, your colleagues. But we have in the member portal for members, you can go back and watch like every webinar for the past 5 years. So if you are new to the industry, or if you were just busy and missed a couple, or maybe your job has changed drastically and you're looking for advice on this new piece of business that you're in charge of, and that's including webinars. We have some white papers. We have award submissions for our Trailblazers Awards in there too. So people can kind of see what is this best of that people are doing, all kinds of information. And then our big research that we put out is our benchmarking metric study, and that's done every other year. And it really takes a deep dive into what sales and marketing professionals are spending their budgets on right now. And that was really exciting. We're in the process of working through that. Attendees of the Executive Summit are actually going to be the people that get the first look at that as one of their perks of attending that event. So we're putting that together right now. It's really, really interesting stuff. I just keep sitting in the data and I'm like, I need to back up for just a minute because I can get lost in here. But that's done every other year. And that is just distributed to our members, or for this one time only, even if you're not a member, but you're at the Executive Summit, you're able to reach that full metric study.
No, that's awesome. And I love the fact that you talk about like the networking. So I personally go and meet with the railroads. That's part of what my job is here at Knichel. And when they send the surveys too, a lot of times what comes back for them too is just networking with your competitors or other peers. What's going on in the industry? What's working for you? What's not? So I think the space that you're creating and the marketing side of it and the sales side of it too is like a little bit different that you don't really see in our industry. And I feel like there's so much room for expansion for what you're doing for executives in our space, because I do feel like, my marketing director, it's like you said, a one-person job at this point, and I know she needs help. But it's one of those things too where people probably feel like they're on an island and they want to be able to network and talk with other people and like, what are you doing and how are you doing it too? Because depending on how companies look at marketing, we actually haven't had to spend a whole lot of money on our marketing per se, but some companies, depending on what you do, do that. And we've had avenues that my director of marketing have taken us down where then we have opportunities come to us, and just knowing which ones are the ones that are important to the company and make sense. And then we'll spend the money where we feel we need to spend the money. And Ashley always comes to me, who's my director of marketing, and will always tell me why this is a benefit to the company. And I mean, I don't think I've ever said no, let's not do this. It's like, let's do this and see how this works. And so it's awesome to have that relationship. And I think the message too that you're trying to get out as well is like having more of those relationships with the people that are running the companies they work for, and understanding how important it is to get like the CEOs and the top level executives involved with understanding that. It's very, very important.
I agree. It's so important. And that's, a lot of these people are that one person marketing team or really, really small sales team. Sometimes it's all merged together, or marketing is merged in an HR department or communications, or something. It's all, across the board, but it can be very isolating. And it is hard, especially when you are the only person with a set of skill sets at a company.
Right.
To try to explain why that skill set is important, but also like how long it takes. Like marketing can take a really, really long time. And I always say it can also be a giant black hole, because you'll have people from every department demanding things out of you, and you have to prioritize and you have to set real structures of how long things are going to take, and people just don't understand. And sometimes because they don't care, but also just because they really don't understand. They don't understand that launching an email campaign takes a lot of time. It's not that you have to create the content, you have to create the graphics, you have to understand who this campaign is going to, what section of the market, what title is it for? Do we have those list of people, or do we have to find it? Like there's a lot of pieces. I know in previous companies that I have worked for, I like created a list of like, these are the things I need from you to execute a campaign. And every question I don't have an answer to will delay the time I can put this out. And the pushback is always a little rough, but it's helped them to understand, oh, this is why this is taking so long. Or because sometimes people are like, well, marketing doesn't know what they're doing. They're really missing the mark on who our customer is or who our partner is. And it's like, but that's part, if marketing is missing the mark on that, you have to explain, you have to give them more information. And that's also marketing's job, is to be interviewing, having regular engagement with the CEO. Or I used to really encourage people to write blogs, and I would be like, I will make the fluffy and make it sound pretty and do all that stuff. Or I had a boss once who did not like writing, but he could create hours and hours of audio content of him rambling off everything. And he was super smart. He's just not a writer. So I'm like, do that and I will sift through it. And then we'll be able, like, getting people more engaged helps both your marketing, your sales, and the higher ups to everything to align together. And I think it's so important. But part of that is just starting those conversations and really talking to people and engaging with them how they want to engage and talk with you. And I think that is the biggest lesson I've learned. I've worked in a lot of male dominated spaces and industry, and women, we like to really communicate and give a lot of extra support in our conversations. But like men, it's not, I don't want to stereotype, but they want you to present the data and then they're going to make their decisions and then carry on. And that was something,
to the point and move on.
yeah. And that was something I was interviewing a woman who worked as an engineer. And that was advice, like, and I really remember that because she was like, I always presented the story and the data, and the men just wanted the data. And so, but also like on the same token, if a man is then presenting to you, they should add some more of the story too, because like both of those things are important. And most important, that's why you should have both those people sitting at the table, because when you're then looking at who your customer base is or who your partners are or whoever you're trying to market, sell, work with, the more you have different people at the table, the better you're going to be able to present that information out.
Oh, absolutely. No, I totally agree with you 100% there. It's definitely, you have two different perspectives, and having those people bring their perspectives to the table, just like you talking about, putting blogs out there and writing stuff. For example, I would probably take 3 days to write something, and I could get some information to Ashley, my director of marketing, and she will come back in 5 minutes with like, oh, here it is in this nice, pretty paragraph, and I'm like, oh, I wish I could do that, but that's not my skill set, and so thank God that I have her to be able to take, what I want to say and make it even better than what it is, and go that route. So it's definitely important.
Yeah, and I think that takes some of the pressure off you too. It's like, you're like, okay, my skill set is that I study these trends and I know the market and I've worked here, and that's my superpower. Well, you hire a really good marketing person because their superpower is taking that and making it digestible to whoever is reading or absorbing that content.
Oh, absolutely. And she's been significant in everything that we've done with this company and putting the company out there and myself out there. So anyone that's listening, it's super important to get across to your CEO and the company, how important it is, because it has worked for my company. It's been a blessing. And to speak, because you brought up, about being in a male dominated industry and being a woman leader, as I am as well, can you discuss a little bit about your leadership strategies and how they helped you most, maybe perhaps, and maybe where you see room for growth?
Yes. I think the biggest power is listening. And I know it should be simple, but really taking a step back and listening to what other people's needs are, what other people want, what other people's skill sets are, is extremely important. And then also being brutally honest with yourself on what your skill set are, like where your expertise in, and also your time. So for me, it's like I can do A, B, and C, but I only have time for A. So I got to let some of it go. And that's really, really hard. That would be where where I can improve upon. But I think if you do those two things, is really listening to your team and understanding and how all the pieces fit together. Because I also think for employees, one of the biggest things of people staying at a company is when they can understand how their puzzle piece fits into the rest of the puzzle. And if you're not helping them get there or explain, or how can they become a second puzzle piece, like where is their career growth? And I think that's one of the really biggest parts of companies right now, and where people are failing, is they are getting mad that people are leaving, but instead of listening, like I hate that we only do like exit interviews. Like, what is that going to do for you? That person's gone. And are you really going to make because I've always very brutally honest in my exit interviews, but I know for a fact that no one's listening because they're not invested in me anymore. I'm gone.
Right.
And had they asked those questions, 6 months, a year ago, it may have been a lot better. And you'd be able to really be like, okay, like she's right. She has a point. Like we are doing this, or she isn't being shaped this way. Or she did tell us 18 times that she was really interested in this, but we never let her do it. And that's kind of, for me, my rule as an employee before I kind of got into this role was to absorb everything I possibly could from that experience and from that place. Could I take on extra projects that were out of my scope if they weren't going to give it to me? And I worked really hard and I worked a lot, but that is how I was able, like I was a journalist who got into social media marketing because I asked if I could. That was like a different department. And I even had to be like very regulated between the marketing and true journalism because we had a very ethical line between the two. So I had to always work with my online manager to make sure that I wasn't selling. Like I created a social media blog series and a webinar series and all this stuff. I was a tire reporter and I was building all this stuff for tire dealers because that was when social media was free. And you could do a lot with a little, which you still can if you know how to do it right. But this was like in the earlier stages of that. And I wanted to help them. And then once I realized, hey, I really, really like this part, I am going to switch. And then I did marketing full time and I still do journalism on the side. But I don't, like, even though I still write in the tire and rubber spaces, I don't market or do anything in that because to me, like there's like an ethical line there. So like this, I'm a journalism and this is marketing and all these other things.
No, I mean, I love that. I love that you were curious to try to figure that out. I love that you talked about the exit interview because you're right. Like at that point, it's too late. And then you try to be like, oh, okay, well, maybe the next person, we won't make this mistake. But if you're having that constant communication and asking, while they're working for you, then maybe they won't leave and, or you have that feedback to work off of. So that's definitely, some great feedback that I appreciate, and talking about, because I think you can answer this one probably really well. Like, what's the best advice that you ever got or that maybe you didn't take? And how did it change you?
So I think that the best advice I ever got, and it's funny because I actually gave this advice out yesterday because I think I'm finally learning it, is that I am a workaholic by nature. I pretty much have worked at least 2 jobs my entire adult life, whether that was like my full-time job and then I worked at the donut shop that I worked at in high school for like into like 3 adult jobs. I was still working there on the side.
You sound like me. Not any longer, but still.
Yeah, it's really hard. And then you do want to absorb and like that. Yes, it's like part of my advice is go after the things and put your foot in things in the doors, even if people aren't asking you to open that door. But you also can very much get taken advantage by doing that because you then end up working 3 jobs for the price of one. And so really putting a value on yourself and your time and your skill set and trusting yourself that you are worth more and knowing that, hey, maybe these people that I work for or with aren't ever going to understand that, but damn, someone will. And hustle and get all those skills so that when you make the leap forward, you can really leap forward and then set better boundaries and expectations in that next job.
Yeah. No, I
Which
love
is really
that.
hard.
No, I think all the advice I even give out, right? Sometimes now I'm not even doing myself. Sometimes I'm finding because it is hard. Like, that you should be doing some of these things and maybe sometimes I am, but sometimes you're not, and you got to take a look at yourself. So no, that's great. And I have another question for you. If you could give one piece of advice to any young woman coming into this industry, what would it be?
So my advice for any person, which I know I referenced it for leaders too, but like is to be really brutally honest with yourself. And it's hard. It's really, really hard. And I think it's important, especially right now, because the job market, there's opportunities for you. So if you're really honest with yourself, you could probably get in a position that's going to make you really happy. And I know for me, I tried to jam my square peg in a round hole for years, like always being like, oh, well, I'm not happy here, but, flexibility really isn't that important to me. I could be fine as long as A, B, and C is there. And every single time I'm unhappy, I have to be able to work from home. I have to be able to be in my own space. I need my commute to just be walking down the stairs. It's just who I am. I really listen to rap music or watch trashy Lifetime movies while I'm working. Like to do that in an office is weird. I have done it. People judge you, but I just
I love it though.
Yeah, it was really funny the day that somebody was screaming in my movie. I'm like, it's just the Lifetime movie, guys. I'm fine. But it's really important to do that. Or I know, especially in the marketing space and in sales, you're able to really decide, do I want a full-time job or do I want to be in the gig economy and pick projects up as I go? And I actually talked to a young lady in my life when she was making this decision. I'm like, do you thrive when people tell you do a good job? Do you need positive reinforcement in the workplace? And she's like, what do you mean? I'm like, I need you to give me your gut answer. And she's like, yes. I'm like, then do not quit your full-time job. Because when you are a freelancer, people do not care about you. They only care about your output. And it's okay, but you have to be honest about that. If you are a freelancer or if you're just a project-based employee, they care about your output. They don't care about your professional growth. They don't care about you getting your kudos and your gold stars because they don't have to, because they are hiring you for the project. So that is a difference that not everybody is really talking about. And you have to or that you don't think about when you get into that. And then all of a sudden you're like, oh, no one has told me I'm doing good at my job for 2 years. Am I doing bad? And also, how am I progressing my skill set? Am I investing in myself? Because who else is going to? And so that's really important to kind of work through that stuff when you're making those decisions on where you want to go. It's not just about the money or not just about flexibility has finally entered the game in a big way since COVID, but it's not the only thing that people really need to think about.
No, I agree. And I think sometimes people don't think about what you just said and being brutally honest with yourself because they're looking at maybe the money side or even just the flexibility side, but it's looking at the whole picture. And is this really going to work for you? You have this is what it has to be. And I love that. That's great because I do think a lot more people would be more successful if they could do that. So thank you for sharing that. And, before we do wrap up, I also would love to hear some news that I heard that you have to share with us today that's exciting. So if you would love to share that with us, please.
Yes, so I'm very excited and honored that Supply and Demand Chain Executive named me one of their Women in Logistics for this year, which is just such a big honor. And I think it is really hard to like put your name out there and go for awards or take the time to like get excited about them. But it's a big one for me, and so I'm very thrilled.
Well, congratulations. That is awesome, especially with you just coming more into the space. And I feel like you're coming in like, 150% and you're not going to stop. And I feel you're going to have many more awards down the road here. And, just don't give up. Keep doing what you're doing because I love it. I think you've done a great job. Even though I haven't known you that long, just this year alone, you've done amazing things. And super excited to see what else is coming with the TMSA coming up. And, just definitely be proud of yourself for what you're doing because you're definitely making a difference.
Well, thank you. That means so much, especially for someone who is such a powerhouse in this industry. So I appreciate all of your kind words. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, hey, you know what? We're at the end of our show. It was a pleasure to have you on the show, Jennifer. Thank you for sharing your personal and your professional journey with us. And for more information about Jennifer Karpus-Romain and the TMSA, please go to www.tmsatoday.org or follow Jennifer on LinkedIn. Thanks for listening today, and stay tuned for more inspiring stories with the LLC podcast.